Welcome to Newsdrops TV, your trusted source for news that matters. Bringing you a mix of humour and a slight conservative twist, we aim to keep you informed and entertained. Let's dive in.
Good evening and welcome to Newsdrops TV, your trusted source for news that matters. I'm Sharon Osborne.
And I'm Ozzy Osborne. Tonight, there will be no more tears as we ride this crazy train into the blizzard of Oz. We've got a packed show with some absolutely mental stories you'd think would be coming from the diary of a madman. Let's get into today.
Our first headline is truly remarkable. Nation happiest ever. Trump is best president, according to Rasmussen polling.
Well, Sharon, it seems America's got a spring in its step. Rasmussen Reports is saying the country's outlook hasn't been this positive since, well, Kamala and Tim said goodbye to us. Their pollster, Mark Mitchell, dropped some absolutely stunning numbers on us today.
Tell us more about those numbers, Ozzy.
Right then, for the first time in Rasmussen's polling history, the right direction numbers actually exceeded the wrong track numbers by a point. And get this, Trump's approval rating hit 54%, with a net positive of plus 10.
And looking at the historical context, these numbers are even more striking. Under Biden at the end of 2024, wrong track was at a whopping 61% compared to just 30% right direction.
Talk about a turnaround. And here's something that'll blow your mind. Under Bush back in October 2008, wrong direction hit 87%. Makes today's numbers look even better, doesn't it?
Though I must point out, Ozzy, that in the best president category, while Trump led with 34%, Obama wasn't far behind at 32%.
And the liberal media's response? They're too busy spinning stories about the Department of Government Efficiency to notice that people actually like where things are heading. Imagine the American public wanting accountability and integrity, and all the Democrats want to do is shout. You ever listen to them shout? They sound just angry, like their diapers are chaffing their skin.
Speaking of the Department of Government Efficiency, our next headline reads, "He spent years watching Silicon Valley take companies apart. He has a warning for DC."
Now this is fascinating stuff, Sharon. We've got Rohit Krishnan, a Bay Area engineer and venture capitalist, breaking down exactly what's happening with Doge's approach to government reform.
And what's his take on it, Ozzy?
Well, he says it's not about politics or ideology. It's about treating government like a business problem. They're going in fast and early, just like when Elon took over Twitter.
Krishnan makes an interesting comparison to Uber, doesn't he? Says they basically bulldozed through bad regulations and ended up with something better for everyone.
Exactly. And he points out that while Doge might not have accomplished much in practical terms yet, they've completely disrupted how people think government should work. It's what he calls a cultural victory.
Though he does raise some concerns about the speed of these changes, particularly regarding research funding and other sensitive areas. The Democrats continue to argue that this is government, not business.
Right you are, Sharon. I think it's because none of them ever worked, so they of course wouldn't know how to run anything. It's refreshing to see the likes of Chuck Schumer, Liz Warren and AOC all quiver a bit because their well of money may be drying up. They're unable to shut their mouths because of shockjaw lockup, and that is a huge gap given the loud mouths that they are.
Our next headline brings us to some major Justice Department news. Trump orders all Biden-era US attorneys to be fired. We must clean house immediately.
Now this is what I call a proper house cleaning. President Trump's going full rock star with this one, clearing the stage for a whole new show.
The details are quite striking, Ozzy. The president directed the immediate termination of all remaining Biden-era US attorneys, citing the need to restore confidence in the justice system.
And while this sort of changing of the guard isn't unusual, the timing and method are raising some eyebrows, aren't they?
Indeed. Particularly interesting is that last week the White House sent termination notices rather than the traditional requests for resignation. And there's that dramatic situation with New York Mayor Eric Adams's case.
Ah, yes. That's where it gets really interesting. Trump ordered the DOJ to drop the corruption case against Adams, and what happened? Acting US Attorney Danielle Sassoon and 5 other staffers resigned rather than carry out the directive.
Sassoon actually accused the Justice Department of acceding to a quid pro quo, of which Adams has flat out denied. This whole thing comes up when Adams switched from the flood our city with illegal immigrants agenda to let's take care of the tax-paying citizens first agenda. Those left heads just don't want to do that.
The really sad part about all this is how the illegals become the ball in this tennis game, tossed back and forth between nations and cartels. I'm not saying they should just be able to stay, but they are the ones being sacrificed.
I agree. I don't see a single politician anywhere offering to help them, other than New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy, who couldn't backpedal fast enough once Homan said he's coming after him. Where were these politicians when Mayorkas said, "Here, have some people from other countries completely unvetted and undocumented spend some time with you and your families"? They could have housed them when Biden was the prez. Now for some news that affects millions of Americans. Trump's plan to eliminate income taxes on Social Security benefits would help high-income households.
This is a big one, Sharon. According to the Penn-Wharton budget model, this plan would reduce government revenues by a whopping $1.5 trillion over 10 years.
And let's break down how Social Security benefits are currently taxed, Ozzy. For individual beneficiaries with combined income below $25,000, or married couples below $32,000, there's generally no tax on benefits.
Right you are. But here's where it gets interesting. If you're between $25,000 and $34,000 as an individual, or $32,000 to $44,000 as a couple, up to 50% of your benefits can be taxed. Taxing benefits that the government says they have been putting aside for you. While making interest on that money as well. Couldn't they just keep the interest and give out the principal?
Yeah, another story of trust us, we're with the government and we will take care of you. It's like the cannibal neighbours inviting you over for dinner and you even bring a dish to go around, but you're the meal.
Yeah, here's how the left spins it. If taxes on Social Security benefits are eliminated, those at the top of the household income distribution would see the largest tax reductions, according to the Penn-Wharton budget model, and lower income earners would see much smaller gains. And you know why that is? Because it's based on what you put in over your time spent working and paying into it. It's not like it's targeted to benefit those with more. The left spins it like the poor will not benefit. It's not that they're poor, it's that they didn't contribute as much into the system, and there's many reasons for that.
Leave it to the biased media to tell the partial story without any critical thought pathway. The report suggests the federal debt could increase by 7% by 2054.
Here's a fix. Just take it off the trillions being saved by cutting USAID programs.
Oh yeah, and wait until they get into the Pentagon programs. They'll be writing checks out to every American and cut the US deficit by trillions. Or they could dip into some of the Pelosi, Liz Warren stock funds. Speaking of financial impacts, here's our next headline. Appeals court blocks student loan relief for 8 million borrowers.
This is a proper mess, isn't it? The 8th Circuit Court of Appeals has effectively frozen the SAVE plan, leaving millions of Americans in limbo.
7 Republican-led states brought this case. Missouri, Arkansas, Florida, Georgia, North Dakota, Ohio, and Oklahoma sued the U.S. Department of Education, claiming that the department and former President Joe Biden lacked the authority to forgive millions of dollars in student loans.
Get this, under the plan, someone with $10,000 in debt would pay about $4,800 less back to the government. That's not pocket change.
And it would have increased income exemptions from 150% to 225% of the poverty line, meaning anyone making less than $32,800 yearly would have no monthly payment.
The total student loan debt in the US is over $2 trillion. That's enough to buy every guitar ever made and still have money left for a world tour.
Our next story has been causing quite a stir. RFK Jr. to investigate childhood vaccine schedules, antidepressant drugs.
The new health secretary isn't wasting any time, is he? Told HHS employees that nothing will be off limits in their investigations.
He's specifically targeting several areas: childhood vaccine schedules, ultra-processed foods, glyphosates, electromagnetic radiation, and antidepressant drugs.
And he told staff they can retire if they're not willing to embrace these new directions. Talk about laying down the law.
Though some medical experts are concerned, aren't they? Dr. Adam Ratner called it very disturbing that someone with Kennedy's views on vaccines could have such influence. Was he the same guy that said, "It's inviting to have someone with Anthony Fauci's unbiased, clear head provide his unquestionable views on vaccines"? Because we all know how trustworthy someone like Anthony Fauci turned out to be.
But Kennedy's got a catchy slogan, "Make America Healthy Again." Reminds me of my old touring days, though I may be a good example of what overindulgent drug use can do. Ah, what the heck. That was then. No more sweet leaf these days.
Moving to international news, Russia, Ukraine takes significant first step toward peace after Rubio-led negotiations.
Though it seems someone forgot to invite Ukraine to their own peace talks. Bit awkward, that.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio met with Russian officials in Saudi Arabia, including Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov and Putin's advisor Yuri Ushakov.
And President Trump seems quite confident, doesn't he? Says he has the power to end this war.
Though President Zelensky had some choice words about that, saying Putin is a liar who doesn't want peace, he said on his way to his comedy club routine. What a fast tracker from dancing comedian to dictator in less than a decade. Nothing a little global billionaire backing can't achieve, even for a guy that can barely see over the bar table.
You know what's interesting? Trump's pushing for Ukraine to hold an election, saying it's not just Russia wanting this, it's coming from many countries, except for Ukraine, which has control on the media, and they say they love the comedian dictator, even those who have been jailed by him.
Next up, Doge meets with Pentagon officials to plan cuts at the biggest US department.
Now this is proper big money we're talking about. The Defense Department's got an $800 billion budget and over 3 million personnel.
Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth seems optimistic, saying every dollar saved goes to warfighters. He specifically mentioned climate programs as a potential area for cuts. I wonder if that will have any influence over cloud seeding.
But here's where it gets tricky. Elon Musk's companies have billions in government contracts. SpaceX alone has about $22 billion in US contracts.
Yeah, here's where all that tricky comes out. The Musk enterprise contracts were all established under Joe Biden's teenagers that ran the country. Joe thought SpaceX was just a dirty movie. Speaking of Doge, Musk-Mulls sending all Americans $5,000 checks using Doge savings.
Now this is what I call a proper stimulus. The plan would use 20% of Doge's targeted $2 trillion in savings.
According to James Fishback, who proposed this idea, it would send about $5,000 to each of the roughly 79 million tax-paying households.
Though Musk was quick to point out, it's entirely up to President Trump.
Doge claims it's already saved $55 billion through various measures: fraud detection, contract cancellations, workforce reductions, and more. And rather than cheering this on, we have media and politicians finding ways to attack both Musk and Trump. It's kind of like your dog digging up $1 million treasure and you punish him for tearing up the backyard. Here's an interesting development. RFK Jr.'s health agenda gains popularity among state lawmakers.
Seems like Kennedy's Make America Healthy Again platform is catching on at the state level.
Several states, Arizona, Kansas, Utah, and others, are introducing bills to ban junk food from school lunches and food assistance programs.
And get this, about a dozen states are changing their vaccine rules, and some are even trying to get fluoride out of water systems.
Arizona Representative Leo Biasucci said it took Bobby to get into the position that he is in now for something to happen.
Yeah, we went from a health secretary that promoted good health by presenting herself as obese and not clear on what gender to be, to jacked, clear-minded gym time healthy. Let's go.
This next story has caught international attention. UK man arrested for praying outside abortion clinic.
Bloody hell. Adam Smith-Connor, a physiotherapist and army veteran, fined £9,000 for silent prayer.
Vice President Vance highlighted this case at the Munich Security Conference, calling it an example of Soviet-style European censorship.
3 minutes of silent prayer, Sharon. Not bothering anyone, just standing there thinking. World's gone proper mad.
The case is heading to appeal later this year, with support from Alliance Defending Freedom International. I say bring back the prayer, let's all get arrested. Blimey, weak UK politicians. Here's a fascinating development: CIA using drones to surveil drug cartels, labs in Mexico.
Now this is proper James Bond stuff. They're using MQ-9 Reaper drones to hunt down fentanyl labs.
The CIA has completed over 24 drone flights near the border, with a team of 140 intelligence experts analysing the footage.
And while the drones aren't armed now, they could be if needed for precision strikes on drug labs.
Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum is aware of the flights, though they're supposedly staying in international airspace.
Hey, Claudia, we're ready to help clean up your drug cartels if you don't want to. I'm just saying.
And our final headline: Governor Hochul's cowardice is on full display as she surrenders to noisy anti-Adams, anti-Trump crowds.
Bit of drama in the Big Apple. 4 deputy mayors resigned just because Adams wanted to work with ICE.
Governor Hochul's response has been interesting, calling for meetings about possibly removing Mayor Adams, starting with a consultation with Al Sharpton.
Sharpton? Now there's a foundation of integrity. Has he ever made an argument or stood a position that was legit and defendable? I think he's, in 20 on that note. But here's the weird bit, lads. If she removes Adams, doesn't that mean she's against working with the feds to arrest criminal aliens?
And it could jeopardize Trump's offers to help New York with infrastructure and tax deductions. Quite a political tightrope for Yar to be on Hochul. A fall to the left gets you a home and case against you. And you're left-leaning.
Well, that wraps up our headlines for tonight. Bloody hell, what a news day. We all know that fairies wear boots and I am Iron Man, riding out on my wheels of confusion.
Stay tuned for weather and Kiss the Evening with Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley coming up next. That's it for now. Be thankful and enjoy what you have. It's more than you think. If you liked our content, please give us a like and hit subscribe for more views through the News Drop scope.